Hey guys, today I will be showing how I have my camera, the Lumix S5 Mark II, set up for cinematic video and for photography, and an easy way to be able to switch between the two different functions. Stay tuned to the very end to see if the settings are right for you, and if they are, how you can download them straight into your camera. Okay, let's first break down my custom mode 1 that I have titled Motion for cinematography and video. I first want to break down the settings in this camera that aren't necessarily correlated with any custom buttons, but you can see on the display here. Let's just get rid of this level meter, so I think that's a little distracting. First off, I'm recording in an MOV file format. This allows for more data, bigger file sizes, but a lot more room for post editing. A lot of the same things can be said for this vlog picture profile. I like using this picture profile because it gives me the most dynamic range out of my sensor and allows me to push and pull my colors in post. For cinematography, at least, I am using what's called shutter angle versus shutter speed. I like having this on because if I were recording in shutter speed, I would constantly have to change that when switching in between frame rates. I like having my audio channels up. This allows me to make sure that I'm not clipping at all, even when I'm recording. So the autofocus right now is set to human detection one area, but if we switch to manual focus, I have the peak settings on. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but I have it to where there is no this thing where like it zooms in for you. I have it to where it doesn't do that, and I still have the option by pressing this button right here. I can find that a little annoying, and my peak sensitivity is turned up by 1 or 2. And last thing, I have this red recording box indicator instead of just that simple dot in the bottom left hand corner. The whole thing turns red to signal that it's recording. If you're liking these settings so far, don't forget I'll be showing you how to import it into your camera at the end. Alright, now let's jump into the dials and the buttons of this whole camera. I see a lot of people have their aperture set to right here, their shutter speed right here, and their ISO set right here. For me, I have my shutter right here, shutter angle, and my aperture right here, and this one is still set for the autofocus box. Coming from a Canon background, I like this as my shutter angle. And I don't want to sacrifice not being able to do this with my autofocus box just to compensate for the ISO. I like having this button right up top to do that. And that way, once I set the ISO, I can't just knock it, whenever I'm recording. I can't accidentally hit it and then my exposure is off. I would have to go through this. So right now we're still talking about cinematography, and these are the custom buttons and their functions for it. Let's start off with this D-pad right here. If we press up on the D-pad, we have my adjustment levels for my audio, which I really like to have. I can even do it as I'm recording. Press up. Still recording like that, so that's very useful, especially pairs well with the channels right here. If we go to the right, we have the waveform monitor, just a quick way for me to check exposure. If we press down, we have my recording list. There are so many different options for resolution and frame rates on this camera, from 180 FPS to 6K, even like 5.9K. So just being able to dial down to what I like right here is nice. In my recording list, I only have 1080p resolution at the moment, just because this is what's best for my workflow. If we press left, if you focus your eyes to the top left of the screen, I'm switching picture profiles. Cinematography 2 picture profile is a flatter profile compared to others, but it does give me more contrast and saturation compared to Vlog. And I like using this picture profile when I want a faster turnaround time on whatever I'm shooting. Let's dive into the Q menu now. You have the recording quality menu again, but this time you have the full options of each recording style. Next, we have the image area of video. I like having this because sometimes I want to cheat when I don't have the proper lens. I need to get closer. I flip to APS-C just to crop in for me. Then right here we have the picture profile again. See, as you can tell, there's a lot to sort through, just like the recording menu. So that's why I like it having just be able to go like that. Up next we have synchro scan. If you don't know, this is what allows you to dial in the shutter angle. If you pay attention right here, see how it's just moving with little increments. Sometimes you need to have that to dial in the shutter angle because of the light source you're working with. It might be flickering, and to get rid of that flicker, you need to have a certain shutter angle. With this off, just with one click of the shutter angle dial, it's moving a lot more than just by one now. Next off is my autofocus sensitivity and speed. I like having mine at -3 but sensitivity at 2. This programs the camera to change focus sooner than later, but at a smooth speed. I have a video on my channel that breaks down all the different kinds of settings that you can have here, from speed -5 to sensitivity +3, if you're curious about checking that out. Next we have zebras. This is good for just not clipping highlights. Zebra 2 is set at 95% exposure, whereas Zebra 1 is at 85, whichever one I choose. Sometimes I mainly go with the Zebra 2, the 95%, because I don't want to have to stop down my exposure that much, especially when shooting outside, but it would still indicate when I am clipping. In this third row of the menu, you basically have all the kinds of stabilization this camera has to offer. And with that being said, this Q menu I've set up to where I could just press it on and know what is influencing my image quality. Am I recording at an APS-C sensor? Am I recording in a Cinematography 2? Is the stabilizer on? So this gives me a very quick way just to assess the way I left my camera the last time I used it. Next up, we have the sound recording level display, on and off. Let's say I'm recording something and do want to get it out of the screen. It's just right there in the Q menu. Next, we have the LUT View Assist. This helps me shoot in Vlog and can help me dial in my exposure and give me a better idea of what my picture is going to look like after editing. And lastly, we have the frame marker. I do a lot of social media work, and so having this set at 2:9:16 gives me the chance to, record something for both horizontal viewing, but also horizontal. Now moving to the top of the camera, I changed this button right here. I honestly don't even know what this is. So since I never use it, I redetermined its function. I have it set to auto white balance lock. So in order to use it, all I would need to do is go to auto white balance. Here, let me do that again so you can see. Right now we're in cloudy. Let's go to auto white balance. Then by pressing this button, I can just lock it in, as you can tell in the top left corner. Some people may be very against this, that I'm even using auto white balance, but in a pinch, I think this could be really helpful to use. And that brings us to our last custom button, is this one in the front. I have this one controlling the luminance spot meter. I like having this because it's just an easy way to check exposure, especially skin tones. And that's really it for my custom settings when it comes to videography and cinematography. Now let's switch over to the custom layout 2, which I have as still. Again, let's start from the beginning. I prioritize shooting in RAW and using a shutter speed when working for photos. I am recording in a natural picture profile, and we'll dive more deeper into those settings of the picture profile in just a second. I'm pretty proud of this. I kind of set up my D-pad right here to reflect the similar functions that I had for the cinematography custom profile. So if we go up, instead of adjusting sound for video, we're adjusting the silent mode on or off. This is what the shutter sounds like on, but with it off, or with it on, it's completely silent. Not even just a quiet version of the shutter, it's just completely silent. I think this is handy for when you're in shooting a wedding and you don't want to interrupt the big kiss or something like that, or just in a quiet setting overall. Next, if we go to the right, instead of the waveform pulling up, we get to change the histogram. Right now it's completely gone because it's a black screen, but even then my exposure is really bad. For the sake of you guys, I'm going to crank up the ISO a lot And there we go. Now if we go down for cinematography, it would bring up my list of recording settings, but to reflect that, I chose the frame rate or the burst settings it can capture at. Let's say I'm doing more sports photography, or I just want to avoid a lot of people blinking. I'm gonna turn that bad boy to high, and we got that going. If we go to the left, we have the photo grid. I chose to not have it change the picture profile because I really just maintain a natural picture profile for photos. There isn't a different workflow that I have for photos. So this one can help me with composition though, if I want to just keep it consistent with the lower thirds or right in the center, or a combination of the both. Now for the Q menu, this looks completely different. We just are really prioritizing the picture profile. Right here, you can see all the settings I have set for the natural picture profile. And then to the right, we have the daylight or the white balance of the camera, the ISO of the camera. And here are the different settings I have. For me, I wanted to reduce the contrast, and then even more by reducing the highlights and upping the shadows. Reducing the saturation because I think this camera is saturated with skin tones. Reduce the sharpness. I think honestly I could reduce this all the way. But just depending if you like the sharpness, especially if you forget to add it in post, 3 is just a safe place. And the noise reduction is just set to 0. Again, I prioritized raw recording format, and here we have the aspect ratios. Let's say I'm shooting a thumbnail, and if you don't know, thumbnails can only be really at 16:9, so do that instead of 3:2. And the custom buttons, I have yet to change this one, and this one is still the luminance spot meter here in the front. And there we have it. Those are my custom settings for video and photo. If you like these settings, I'm going to show right now how you can import those settings. But if you want to change a few things, which most likely you would, I'm also going to show how you can make your own settings and save it. All you need to do is take the SD card from your camera and put it into your computer and download the file that I have linked in the description below. Download the file and put it onto your SD card, and then put the SD card back into your camera. After that, you want to pull up the menu button and go to the 4th icon from the top, like a wrench or whatever tool that is, and go to the gear. Then from there, you want to go to save/restore camera setting. You want to press load, make your way to your SD card, and it should pop up right here. And you just want to press that. Now, if you want to make changes to the settings of your own, the quickest way to change the custom buttons on this dial right here are just to simply press and hold, and it would bring up what you can change it to. I had mine on silent mode, that's why it's showing silent mode right now. This doesn't work for all buttons though. Say for instance, you want to change the white balance or the ISO button to do something different. When you hold it down, it just performs its predetermined function. To change custom buttons like that, you want to go to the gear icon, make your way to the 3rd from the top, and go to function button set. Then you're going to want to press setting in record mode and go to the button that you want to change. See right here, this correlates to this button. I can press it and dial it in for, let's say, the auto white balance lock again, wherever it is. There it is, auto white balance lock. And just like that, it is changed. Now for the Q menu, it's a different story again. You would have to go back to the menu, and the same place, the gear and the 3rd from the top, go to Q menu settings. Depending if you're in video or photo, right now I'm in photo, so I'm selecting that. I could change whichever one I want to have. Let's say I don't really need to worry about RAW because I'm always in RAW. So let's just change this for something else. That's how you would be able to do it. And this last thing I have to tell you is a crucial step. Making these changes aren't going to save automatically. To save it, you want to go to the menu and go down to the fourth icon again. Go to the gear and go to Save Custom Mode. You could choose whichever one on the dial. When you select it, you have the opportunity to rename it by hitting right here, Edit Title. I don't want to change anything, so I'm just going to back out. And that's basically overall how you can have the most control over your camera. One little tip I have for you is to add this to your menu, in your personal menu right here. I have the monitor settings and the backlight settings because I find myself frequently changing this, especially if I'm shooting in harsh daylight and can't see my screen as well. I changed this a lot. I wasn't able to find it available in the Q menu or on this custom dials. So the third best option is to really add it to my personal menu list. And there you guys have it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And want more Lumix S5 Mark II content, please consider subscribing and checking out the channel. I hope to see you in the next one. Deuces.